mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near.
Some of the most delightful moments I can remember in motherhood have taken place when I sneaked up on my kids. That's risky now that they're in high school. Those days are over. But when they were very little and they didn't yet have any expectation of personal space, I used to sneak up on them sometimes to see what they were up to when they were left to their own imaginations. When my daughter was a preschooler, I caught her reading out loud once. The book was upside down, but that's okay. She didn't know how to decode the words. She was telling her made-up story with lots of expression, even pointing at the words and pictures as she went along. Another time I overheard my son at about the same age talking to snapdragons out in the garden. He squeezed the sides of the blossoms so that their mouths would open and close like a dragon. But my very favorite times were when the kids were about 2 or 3 years old, and I'd sneak up and see their little rounded shoulders hunched over some toy or object in concentration, and they'd be humming. Not an official song, but just some little made-up tune that flowed out of their spirits as they stacked blocks or buttoned and unbuttoned a teddy bear jacket. Humming as though it were the most natural thing in the world. And isn't it? There's something so fundamentally human about making music. We don't even need an official song to do it. I think of my grandfather whistling elegantly when I was little as he cut the grass or built a whole addition on a house. Or I think of how fundamental music must be for us humans that I could be in my car sometimes with the turn signal on and find myself bopping along to it, subconsciously turning it into a more elaborate beat. Just like that. Yeah. Exactly like that, Abe. Yeah. Music flows out of us in spontaneous song, and it flows into us with the rhythmic tapping of rain or an old clock or a turn signal. It can rouse powerful feelings in us. Think of battle marches leading troops to war, or think of the civil rights movement. Of course, right? There was a moment during the March on Selma when civil rights marchers faced a bridge on the edge of town that was being guarded by armed police officers and militia, whose goal was to prevent the group from ever actually entering Selma. The marchers knew that people had been arrested, injured, and even killed by police before, and so looking at the guns and clubs and dogs, they were reluctant to cross. They stopped in their tracks for many minutes, trying to work up the courage to proceed. And then one older woman began to sing a song that you know well, that is now in our hymnals. We shall overcome. And they joined in with her, and they got up and crossed over. No shots fired. Later, one police officer said it was just too unnerving to think about shooting at a group of people who were singing that song. Music has an amazing power with us, always has. Every culture around the world has some form of music, and they all seem to date back as far as we can trace. Archaeologists have found musical instruments from as far back as the Upper Paleolithic era, between 10,000 and 50,000 years ago. Music must be a natural human impulse, not so different from the sounds of songbirds and whales. But in humans, we could also say that music is like a form of prayer, because the impulse to play or to sing or to tap out a song arises as a kind of yearning. Yearning is defined as tender or urgent longing. It's something that the spirit wants, and that wanting is felt in the body. Yearning evokes a physical response. Music begins as yearning. It begins as a yearning to express something within us that cannot be articulated with regular words. Most prayers are actually that way too, hard to articulate perfectly in ordinary language. I don't know about you, but when I pray out loud, sometimes the first thing that happens is I think this is so bizarre when I don't think God actually has ears. And that word, God, what a mess that word has become. What does it even mean? And so we resort to speaking in metaphor and poetry and music. Music is prayerful and worshipful in this sense. Imagine the earliest humans and their impulse to make the earliest music. What were they yearning to express? I imagine it was an expression of their very humanness, of our need to cast beauty and questions and gratitude and our longing itself right out into the universe. Those early humans were few. Although they would have had a deep sense of their interconnectedness with life on this planet, they also would have had an unobstructed view of the night sky, unobscured by city lights, and they would have felt their own smallness. Some things never change, even in the most modern settings and with formal music and all the technology in the world. Surely some of those same ancient impulses and yearnings move us to make music today, as Commander Chris Hadfield did this year, while he was amidst all those stars looking out upon Earth from the International Space Station.
Ground control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom. Lock your Soyuz hatch and put your helmet on.
10,
Ground control
9,
to Major Tom.
8, 7, 6,
Commencing countdown, engines on.
3, 2,
Detach from station and may God's love be with you. This is ground control to Major Tom. You've really made the grade, and the papers want to know whose shirts you wear. But it's time to guide the capsule if you dare. This is Major Tom to ground control. I've left forevermore.
One commentator on YouTube where this video was posted wrote, "You may be cool, but you'll never be Chris Hadfield singing Space Oddity in the International Space Station cool." I think for all our scientific discovery, actually nothing could be more primally human than a lone astronaut singing in outer space. Old impulses. We're wired not only to sing, but to benefit from it. The writer Stacey Horn describes a singer's high that comes in part through a surge of endorphins, which also have the power to alleviate pain. She sings in a choir, and she explains that when the voices of the singers surrounding her hit her ear, she's bathed in dopamine, a neurotransmitter in the brain that is associated with feelings of pleasure and alertness. Music also lowers cortisol, a chemical that signals levels of stress. Did you guys know that? That sounds good, right? But it isn't only group singing that does this. Horn goes on to say that studies have found that people who just listened to music before surgery were more relaxed and needed less anesthesia, and afterward they got by with smaller amounts of pain medicine. Music also releases serotonin, a neurotransmitter associated with feelings of euphoria and contentment. She quotes a choral friend who tells her, "Every week when I go to rehearsal, I'm dead tired and don't think I'll make it until 9:30. But then something magic happens and I revive. It happens almost every time." David Huron, a music professor at Ohio State, says that singing may generate prolactin, which has a tranquilizing, consoling effect. And that's why even sad music can improve our moods. Apparently, even singing about death itself is good for you. One study reported that a choir singing Mozart's Requiem showed an increase in SIGA, an immunoglobulin that enhances our immune defense. That's cool, right? And we need it. We need all the boosting we can get. I mean, think about this week. Recent events weighed heavily on my mind as I thought about preaching about music today. Should I change my topic? I wondered. This week, our president is still talking about violating international law and bombing Syria, as though the only two options were committing violence or condoning violence already committed. This week, someone set off grenades at the mall in Nairobi and a bomb at a funeral in Baghdad. And this week, our country experienced its 20th mass shooting in 5 years. Its 20th shooting in 5 years. The 5th year isn't even over. Here in the US, it's starting to sound like world news, like foreign countries where random bombings occur. Sometimes I'm at a loss, and I don't know what to tell you about this world we're living in. I wish I had the perfect words to help you make sense of the hardest weeks, to help you feel brave and confident enough each morning to wake up feeling hopeful. I wish I had the perfect words to help you give your sister or your nephew your blessing as they head to Afghanistan, or to help you face your parents' decline, or to face your own illness, or your spouse's. I wish I had the perfect words to ease the experience of sending your child or grandchild out for their first drive with their new driver's license, knowing what you do about drunk drivers and road rage and randomness. And how I even wish, on some days, that I could offer you a tidy theology that blames or credits everything on an omnipowerful God who knows what's best for us and loves each of us. And I wish I could tell you that good and evil are easy to identify and that all will be made fair in the end. Instead, what I can tell you is that I love you, that you are loved here, and that the world is ultimately marked by love over and against suffering and sin, that wherever bad things happen, love still flourishes, and that no matter what becomes of a body, your body, you are safe from annihilation because you are loved and are part of something meaningful, and you cannot be erased. Not even death or grief can do that. And together we can offer each other this place, right? To come and to not be alone when tough things happen. We weather the storms of the world together and the storms of our personal lives, and here we can gather up the courage to hang in there, knowing that troubled times come to every place and to everyone, but that no feeling is final. And we sit with the silence inside until we find the right expression for our prayer, until we're ready to make a promise to our world-weary selves, until we're ready to sing.
And I am far from
Our closing hymn is on an insert in your order of service. Life calls us on. After you sing the verses written here, watch Tanya for direction. You'll know what to do. Please rise as you are able.
For the blessing
Go in peace, and may love bless you and keep you until we gather again. Amen.